Greetings travellers, and welcome to Zaratania. In this vid I'd like to walk you through the process I took to build this base in No Man's Sky. It was built on PS5 with no mods, but a lot of glitch building. In fact, this is really a culmination of everything I've learned over the last few years building in No Man's Sky, as well as other ideas I've had bouncing around for quite a while. But more about that later. I've divided this walkthrough into an internet-friendly numbered list, and we'll be gabbing at length. So grab a Granberry cider and get comfy. Part 1. Origins. In several different cultures and religions, as well as in popular fantasy fiction from Pratchett to King to Last Airbender, great turtles with worlds or islands on their backs fly through the cosmos or swim in ancient seas. They are known by different names: world turtles, Azpidocalone, Zaratan, and many others, hence the name Zaratania. I read a few of Pratchett's Discworld novels as a wee lad and loved its distinct humour. As an amateur writer myself, I've been playing around with a similar idea for many years, a fantasy world where giant mollusks roam the shallow seas on a migratory path, with self-sustaining cities carved into their great shells. I even commissioned some concept art, and hope to finish a book of short tales by the time I die. The odds are not good. I may be an amateur writer, but I'm a professional procrastinator. So when the supersize glitch was discovered, and eventually made public in the NMS building community, inevitably my thoughts led me to want to use some of these ideas from my mollusk world and make it real in No Man's Sky. Part 2. The Lore. In short, the Zaratanians, the diminutive race of protogek that live on the back of the great turtle that they have christened Shimra, are fully self-contained. I like the idea of an enclosed ecosystem where everything they need can be accessed either on, around, or from the turtle. It was also a deliberate choice to make their level of technology low. They are simple folk, and having too much tech on their turtle home, I felt, would have greatly detracted from the vibe of the place. I also wanted Zaratania to have a social hierarchy, and ultimately a kind of basic monarchy. The idea that the higher you live on the shell means the more status you have. I would imagine they probably worship the turtle as a kind of god, as it provides for them. I didn't initially include any of this iconography, mainly because I was paranoid about hitting the 3,000 part limit, and wanted to make sure that I had all the basics done first. At the time of making this vid, I still haven't hit 3k, so I have recently gone back and added a small shrine to the turtle, with humble offerings made by the locals. Part 3. The Turtle. Now we'll get a bit more into the actual building of the base. I originally thought about building the turtle as a low orbit base as per the Great Achuin in Pratchett's Discworld. But I have done quite a few low orbit bases, and had also recently discovered a gorgeous planet with beautiful blue seas since the Aquarius update. As soon as I found this planet, I knew I wanted to build something special there. The turtle is a super-scaled wonder projector projection of a land turtle fauna found via the NMS coordinate exchange on Reddit. As I mentioned, there is a technique to super-scale objects with a glitch technique that I will not go into here. I will place a link to the tutorial video by Bibblebum in the description, but as he says, and from my own experience, use it with a large dose of caution. I've heard it can ruin saves, although I've never personally had that particular issue. However, the giant wires have a very unpredictable collision radius, and I can attest to them inadvertently deleting huge parts of another base of mine when I tried to delete them. All that aside, I originally wanted the turtle to be near a particularly lovely part of the coast, but to get the turtle to sit at the right level in the water, I had to drill down to the bedrock and place the projector at the bottom of the hole. I ended up having to go out into the open ocean to get the projector deep enough. Being in the open sea ended up being a better choice anyway, I think. Part 4. The Foundation. The foundation is based on a 64-sided circle, with the first piece being free placed on the centre of the hologram's back as best as I could guess. I rarely make 64-sided circles, but this one had to be as smooth-sided as possible. I have put a link to another vid where I construct a circular floor in the description, and there are several good tutorials on YouTube. I originally wanted to make it 4-tiered, but ended up going with 3, as I was worried about going over the build limit when it came to building the structures and decorating them. I also ended up thinning out the inner rows of the stone flooring to the bare minimum necessary to not have any gaps to minimise part numbers. The turtle's hologram shell was still showing through the rear of the lower disc when it moved upward, so that section needed to be elevated to hide it. I ended up using this back section for the farm, which probably is the logical place to put it anyway. I initially tried suspending the disc with pillars connecting to the shell, but it looked top heavy, so I chose a tapered look using stone ramps. 2 sets of steps connect the first and second tiers, and 1 set, for security reasons, to the 3rd tier. So with the foundation done, it was time to move on to the layout of the town. Part 5. The Town Plan. It was important for me that the town look as functionally complete as possible. With that in mind, I approached the town plan from the angle that there would need to be basic infrastructure and commerce, most of it being on the lowest tier. It is essentially a fishing village. If they fish, they would need a fishmonger. If they grow fruit and vegetables, they would need a store in which to sell or trade it. This store would also probably double as a general store, selling other supplies to the locals. There would obviously be a need to access the water from the town, so a jetty with a crane would be necessary. Also, I imagine that as the turtle makes its way around the seas, the opportunity to trade with mainlanders would also be possible. I wanted to use animals and carts, so there would have to be stables, preferably near the farm and jetty. Of course, the locals would like to socialise, so there would have to be at least a couple of meeting places, a bar and an alfresco restaurant. As I mentioned, there is a simple class structure to their culture, so smaller, simpler buildings would be on the lower tier, larger, more elaborate and wealthy buildings on the second, and finally the whole 3rd tier would be taken up by the King's Citadel. I roughly sketched this out on paper a couple of times, making sure the placement made sense, and then I was ready to build. Part 6. The Buildings. When I decided to build on this planet with its spectacular azure waters, the first thing I thought of was Greek Cycladic architecture. The iconic Greek coastal towns with their whitewashed walls and blue dome roofs evoke a certain laid-back mood that matched this build perfectly. So I did some Google searching of images of places like Santorini to get a bit of inspiration. I managed to use the colour glitch to get my stone domes blue and my walls white with a streak of terracotta orange. I've put a link in the description for the colour swapping glitch. I wanted to have the walls a different colour to the surrounding streets to give the impression that they are painted that way. The other decision that I made early on was to make the buildings smaller than average. I did this for a couple of reasons. First, I wanted to make the village to scale with the residents. I made the Zaratanian Protogek small, so the whole town will be built at their scale. The doors are lower because they're shorter. This also had the added bonus that if players visited the town, they couldn't enter all of the buildings unless I built them specifically accessible. This meant that I didn't have to waste excess parts and time decorating every single house interior. Also, I had it in mind that not all bases should be built for us players. I love the idea that this is a place built for these Gek. So when you visit, you get the sense that they are just living their lives before, during and after your visit. And players shouldn't be able to just walk into someone's house uninvited. I wanted to make the buildings roughly cylindrical, so the best I could do without using too many parts was to lay a small hexagon with small triangles, then free place another triangle at one of the hexagon's points using a small square floor. I then built up 3 short walls high, placed a floor on each wall, deleted the walls and placed my regular walls and doors. I used a couple of half arches to make the gap in the wall for the door, and then used a simple stone doorway. At this height, they are slightly too low for us, but the right height for a little Zaratanian. The domes are scaled down to fit the roof with the scale glitch, links in the description. I used a locker at the right height to free place the dome on top, but not before sticking a lantern in there to provide a bit of light from inside. The doors are either wall hanging flags, scaled down walls, or scaled down roof parts, again using the lockers to mount them flush with the door frame. As I mentioned, the lower buildings were often small and simple, with the second tier being more complex. I used more decorative parts like these ornate door frames for them to indicate their status. Only a few of the buildings have windows and interiors, but it hopefully creates the illusion that most of the buildings are occupied. We just can't see in them. Tended pot plants on windowsills have the same effect. I wanted to stagger and vary the height of the domes to break up the sightlines a bit, so I added rows of short walls to the top sometimes to give a bit of extra height. The windows are made by mounting a scaled down door frame and a short wall for the windowsill on a locker. I nearly always use lockers and boxes for this kind of thing because, unlike many building parts, they have no collision issues, meaning you can place something on a locker, delete the locker, and the item doesn't delete with it. Plus, they have good vertical and horizontal surfaces with no anomalies for mounting things on. I highly recommend using them. The blue shutters are colour-glitched scaled wooden short walls, put in place with a small short wall. I had to use the short wall to get it flush with the frame and still be able to delete it later. The only building that breaks with the colour scheme is the King's Residence. Adjacent to the entrance to the Citadel, his building has elaborate walls and domes of royal blue and gold to match his throne room. He also has the best views. Curious travellers can peek in his windows to see his dining room and bedroom, all very fancy. The white pillows are made by colour glitching a pale grey and white palette from the circular neon sign to a cement bag. And the windows are scaled down wood frame windows, free placed using the lockers again. The window frames are scaled down upside down stone door arches. The citadel itself utilises the original 64-sided circle. The ornate pattern inside was accidentally formed by layered circular window stone walls, and the roof is made by using the new skylight roof part. It creates these beautiful shadows during the day, which was a pleasant surprise. I was ready to delete every second skylight if necessary, if I ran out of building parts. I'll come back to the details of the interior later, but now it's time to populate our town. Part 7. The Inhabitants. As you have probably guessed, I love the Wonder Projector. In my mind, it's the most important new item added to the base building arsenal. Having the ability to bring life and movement to your bases, to make them feel lived in, has opened up a whole world of possibilities. Bases can be cold, empty places, even if they are beautifully made. Anyway, to avoid that particular tangent, I made a vid just about the Wonder Projector and its potential that I'll link in the description. Suffice to say, get on it. It's wonderful. Yeah, sorry. The Zaratanians are a collection of scaly protogek collected from the NMS Coordinate Exchange on Reddit. I tried to get a few different colours, with the only exception being the king with his feathered headdress and his advisor. But I didn't want furry ones. Really? I wanted to keep them relatively consistent, and the reptilian ones I thought better matched the idea of living on a turtle. I placed them on the ground by first removing the floor, then building another floor one short wall under it. I then placed a small box on the lower floor to make sure the gek's little toes were at floor level. These boxes vary in size as different projections have different gaps between the projector and the projection. Using another box scaled down to a predetermined size for the gek, I would glitch build a Wonder Projector on the smaller box. The reason for using this glitch is the base limit for the projectors is 10, which I hit quite quickly. Link in the description for the glitch technique used here. And then, remembering to delete the lower scaffold first to save parts, I would replace the floor again. I sat the gek on stools using a similar technique with a larger box just below floor level. Once I had the town in place, I had a lot of fun putting the little guys in different vignettes. Neighbours talking to each other through the window, people at the bar or dining in the restaurant, picking fruit in the field, shopping, chefs preparing food, a gek down in the boat fishing, operating a crane, checking for incoming boats. One of my favourites is the little gek child holding a toy spaceship. Maybe he sees the starships fly by or meets strangers visiting his town and dreams of being a space pilot one day. Dream big, little fella. I'm also quite fond of the inventor in his villa. I like to think of him as the town's Da Vinci. A peek in his windows lets you see his messy lab with all its science gear. It's just a lovely, whimsical idea. I still have some parts left to go, so I'll be adding a few more Zaratanians around the place if I can think of something interesting for them to do. I don't want it to feel too crowded though. Part 8. Other bits. The space below the two sets of stairs were perfect for a couple of business establishments, so I decided to put the restaurant in one and the fishmonger in the other. Let's take a closer look at them now. I wanted to have the hanging string of lights that are often found in restaurants with outdoor dining. Plus, it was nice to be able to have a different colour than all that blue and white. I made the curve of the wire with two vertical circles, using the smaller stone floors for the outer ring, and then I ran scaled down supply pipes from tip to tip. The lights are scaled down pill lights, free placed. Inside we can see the cabinet behind the manager. The glass cabinet doors are scaled down wood frame windows. The kitchen grill is made from scaled down supply pipes, free placed. And the burners are a combination of upside down floor lamps and flaming barrels. They are placed at the right height with boxes and then the cabinets are put in place. The smoke or steam is produced by hiding an industrial pump inside. And the other guy is on dish duty. A lot of microbuilding has to do with the order in which you do things. Once something is built, often it is impossible to undo without deleting all or part of your microbuild. And this can be a deal breaker for a lot of players. But remember to regularly save your game with a portable save point, especially before you add a part that will be impossible to delete safely later. Knowing which part that is, unfortunately, only really comes from trial and error. The fishmonger features a wonder projected fish flipped horizontal using the universal adjacency glitch and a scaled down wall light locker combination, link provided below. The fish is native to this planet. The jellies are in a scaled down glass cuboid room. The jellies were first, then the cuboid over the top. The crane is based on a turn-of-the-century manual wharf crane. I added some wonder projectors as cogs to give it a bit of movement. There are several cats hidden around the town, especially near the wharf and fishmonger. They are also wonder projections. Wild cats are a common sight in seaside villages, always looking for wayward scraps of fish, and it wouldn't be hard to imagine that there might be a few vermin about in the alleys to be taken care of also. The flower boxes are made by first placing the flowers using a large box. Then a slightly lower box is used for the planter so it can slide under the flowers. The ivy and bougainvillea type plants are just standard plants, but start them large and slowly shrink and rotate them as you go higher. It will look more realistic that way. As I mentioned, I recently added a shrine to the turtle. One small detail I figured out this time around was to make this incense burner. The incense sticks are actually the tops of the dual antenna scaled down. It worked out pretty well. The bar has an array of bottles on display, with the labels being small decals. I have made a vid about making a bar similar to this, linked below. I always use square posters for coasters too. You can sit at the bar by embedding a scaled down sittable chair into the bar at the right height. When they are scaled down, players actually sit behind them, so you can use that to your advantage. A bit of interactivity with the base goes a long way to making the visit a bit more immersive. I haven't thought of a name for the bar yet, so let me know your suggestions in the comments. Little things like leaving bottles or bits of rubbish laying around also helps to make it feel like a real place. Nothing should be too neat or straight. Life is messy. The hotel is one of the few places accessible for players. I figured that, even though they prefer to be left alone, the Zaratanians would have visitors occasionally, so they made some accommodation for big folk. The farm is made from stone walls coloured from the wood parts palette and flipped horizontal. It was the closest I could get to something resembling soil. Some plants can be harvested. These are scaled up carbon planters flipped to about 80% horizontal to be level with the floor. Again, a few little bits and pieces like shovels and fertiliser bags do a lot to add to the realism. I imagine a lot more talking and sitting goes on here than gardening. The animals are placed at ground level, much the same as the gek. And I got lucky that this creature is endemic to this planet, so they were probably domesticated many years ago. And if you are wondering where the milk sold in the store comes from, well, there's your answer. Tasty. I love the way these stairs feather like that. It's another happy accident. I was quite happy with the King's Throne as well. The throne itself is a scaled down roof cap, and the crest is made from scaled down stone roof gables. The arms are scaled down stone wall caps, and the legs are support pillars. It was all free placed, and I'm glad that I could get it done using parts that fit with the rest of the build material wise. As I mentioned, I still have a few parts left and would like to keep adding details until I run out. Maybe some fishing nets or drying seaweed racks, for example. If you have any ideas, please post them in the comments, and also I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. All in all, this has been a fun build for me on many levels, and I'm glad that I could share it with you. Feel free to come and visit and have a drink and a chat with the Zaratanians. I think you'll find that they are an amiable bunch. Please leave a like and subscribe if you wish. And as always, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you later.